15 nuns found themselves mysteriously pregnant after the arrival of a strange priest, leading to a shocking scandal within the Santa Clara convent. This sacred place, once a sanctuary of peace and prayer, under the strict yet devoted guidance of Mother Superior Teresa, became the center of an unsettling mystery. The nuns, including Isabel, a young woman known for her dreams and kind heart, and Lucia, another devoted sister, dedicated their days to spiritual and laborious duties in harmony, until one night changed everything. The serene atmosphere of the convent was disrupted by an unusual sound echoing through the corridors. As Mother Teresa left her quarters to investigate, she encountered an unexpected figure. Father João. His enigmatic gaze and serene yet disconcerting presence set the stage for the turmoil to follow. "Father João, what brings you here at this hour?" Teresa asked, her voice trembling. "I seek refuge, Mother. My heart is burdened, and I feel that only the Divine's presence can ease my pain," he replied, his tone soft yet laced with an indefinable weight. Reluctantly, Teresa allowed him to stay. The priest began attending prayers with an immaculate demeanor, but something about him unsettled Isabel and Lucia. During a mass, Isabel whispered to Lucia, "Something isn't right about him. He watches us as though judging our very souls." Lucia nodded hesitantly. "I feel it too, but who are we to question?" The days grew increasingly tense. Minor but troubling incidents began to unfold. Doors left ajar, objects misplaced, and unsettling nightmares haunting the nuns. These strange occurrences culminated in a chilling encounter when Isabel approached Father João directly. "Father, forgive me, but why has your presence brought such unease to our home?" she asked. He responded with a cold, joyless smile. "My child, the unease was already here. I merely illuminated the shadows." Though deeply unsettled, Isabel shared her conversation with Mother Teresa, who began to regret her decision to host the priest. Yet before she could act, the convent's atmosphere took an even darker turn. One evening, Lucia was found weeping in her room. "Mother, I feel a presence, something unholy," she confided. Teresa's attempts to comfort her were undermined by her own growing doubts. Who was Father João truly, and what was his purpose here? Seeking guidance, Teresa entered the chapel that night to pray, but the oppressive darkness seemed to suffocate her faith. Meanwhile, tensions among the sisters escalated. United by their prayers and routines, the nuns now eyed one another with suspicion, as though sensing an unseen threat. Isabel, ever observant, noted the priest's omnipresence. "Mother, he's always near, always watching. I'm sorry, but I don't feel safe around him," she admitted. Teresa tried to reassure the young nuns. "Father João is a man of God. Perhaps he is simply wrestling with his own spiritual struggles." But even Teresa's faith wavered as Lucia described the intensity of his gaze during prayers. "He looks at us as if he's devouring us with his eyes," she whispered fearfully to Isabel. The nights became increasingly harrowing. A pervasive sense of dread enveloped the convent. Lucia's nightmares intensified, filled with shadows moving through her room and a voice whispering her name. "It can't just be my imagination. Something terrible is about to happen. May God protect our home," she confided to Isabel. As the days passed, the nuns grappled with their growing fears and the ominous presence of Father João, unsure if the answers lay in divine revelation or an even darker truth. Isabel, who never believed in superstitions, began to share in her friend Lucia's growing fear. One night she decided to follow Father João as he roamed the convent. She saw him enter the library, where he stayed for hours examining ancient books and taking notes in a notebook. When he finally left, Isabel ventured inside and found a pile of open books, all turned to passages about religious mysteries and exorcisms. "He is investigating something." "But what?" she murmured, a shiver running down her spine. Meanwhile, Mother Teresa also began to feel uneasy. One night, while praying alone in the chapel, she heard a strange noise. Turning, she saw Father João standing at the entrance, watching her with a peculiar expression. "Forgive me, Mother, I didn't mean to startle you," he said, walking slowly toward the altar. Father Joan, why are you behaving so peculiarly? Teresa asked, her voice firm but her heart restless. Peculiar, Mother? This convent holds secrets. Secrets that must come to light, he replied. Teresa frowned. Secrets? This is a sacred place. What are you talking about, Father? Not everything sacred is free from sin, Mother, he said before leaving Teresa overwhelmed with doubt and fear. That same night, something terrible happened. Lucia awoke, startled by a presence in her room. Her heart raced when she saw a shadow in the corner. As her eyes adjusted, she realized it was Father João. Father, what are you doing here? She asked, her voice trembling. I came to pray for you, my dear, he replied, but his voice carried a disturbing coldness. Before she could react, he moved closer and Lucia was overcome with terror. From that night on, everything changed. Father João began intruding into the nuns' rooms under the guise of offering prayers, but his intentions were dark and sinister. The once peaceful sanctuary became a stage for silent abuse. The victims, paralyzed by fear and shame, felt powerless to act. João's shadow loomed over every corner, turning the convent into a place of pain and dark secrets. As days passed, João's behavior grew bolder. During the early hours of the morning, he would wander the corridors, entering rooms under the pretense of nocturnal prayers. The first victims remained silent, consumed by fear and guilt, as though the sin lay within them. Each night, he chose a different room, using sweet words to veil his true intentions. Lucia noticed the other nuns' strange behavior. They were quieter, avoided eye contact, and flinched at the slightest noise. Since the night she encountered him in her room, Lucia slept with her door locked and prayed he wouldn't return. Isabel, on the other hand, was determined to uncover the truth. One night she hid in the main corridor and waited. Her heart pounded as she saw João open the door to a nun's room. She heard whispers followed by muffled sobs coming from inside. The next morning, Isabel confronted Lucia. He is doing something terrible, sister. We can't stay silent. Something grave is happening. What can we do? He's the priest, Isabel. Who would believe us? Lucia replied, tears welling in her eyes. Despite their fear, the two decided to act. They began discreetly warning the other nuns, urging them to protect themselves. Some listened but remained silent, paralyzed by trauma. Then the symptoms began. One of the nuns, Maria, experienced severe nausea and dizziness. It must be something I ate, she said, trying to rationalize it, but soon others began feeling the same: weakness, nausea, and sudden mood swings. Lucia and Isabel exchanged worried glances, the cause becoming increasingly evident. Finally, Isabel approached Mother Superior. Mother, we need to talk to you, she said. The Mother Superior listened in silence as the two recounted everything. Her expression of shock gave way to a mixture of anger and guilt. My God, why didn't you tell me sooner? I should have noticed. I failed you, she said, her voice heavy with remorse. He controls everyone, Mother. Even now, some of us are too afraid to speak, Isabel said, her voice trembling. Teresa felt the weight of what she had just learned, but before she could act, the scandal erupted. One of the nuns, weak and nauseous, fainted during Mass. When a city doctor examined her, the revelation hit like thunder. She was pregnant. The Mother Superior tried to keep the situation discreet, but it was impossible. Gradually, other nuns began exhibiting the same symptoms. Within weeks, the unimaginable became clear. 15 nuns were pregnant. Is this a miracle or a curse? Murmured one of the sisters as panic spread through the Santa Clara convent. Mother Teresa tried to confront Father João, but he was nowhere to be found, as if he knew his presence would no longer be tolerated. Isabel and Lucia, the only two who had escaped his grasp, knew they had to act. If no one does anything, he will continue to destroy our lives, Isabel said with determination. They decided it was time to seek justice and began planning their next move, exposing the monster who had infiltrated the heart of their sacred refuge. The convent now resembled a battlefield, with the nuns divided between guilt and shame. Isabel, Lucia, and Mother Teresa united in their quest for justice. The silence that had once been their protection now weighed heavily upon them. Questions haunted their minds. How had Father João manipulated so many women? What had he truly sought to achieve by invading their rooms and shattering their faith in God? Unable to endure the oppressive shadow of Father João any longer, Isabel and Lucia decided that confronting him directly was the only way forward. Alongside Mother Teresa, they meticulously planned his capture, aware that he was now hiding in the darkest corners of the convent. One night, armed with courage and determination, the three women positioned themselves strategically. The plan was simple: to catch him during his so-called nightly prayers, which they now knew were a guise for his sinister acts. Hours passed. Lucia and Isabel waited in the upper wing, while Mother Teresa kept watch near the chapel entrance. Finally, the moment came. Father Jouot appeared, walking calmly through the corridors with a small book in hand, his expression serene yet hiding a malicious glint. Teresa whispered, "Now," and the three moved swiftly. Lucia and Isabel descended the stairs as Mother Teresa blocked the chapel exit. Surrounded, Joao's calm demeanor cracked into a sinister smile. "So you've decided to confront me," he said with disdain. "Do you truly believe you can stop what is destined to happen?" Lucia, her eyes blazing with anger, stepped forward. "Your time is up, Father. We will end your lies." Teresa advanced, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Tell us, what have you done to these women? Why have you caused so much pain?" Father Joao let out a chilling laugh. "I did nothing but act according to the laws of nature and faith. But you, all of you are guilty too." Isabel stared at him, confused. "Guilty? What are you talking about? What madness is this?" He took a deep breath as though preparing for a grand revelation. "I was sent here to do what none of you could, to awaken your true purpose. This convent is doomed, and the only way to save these women was to break their faith." "Break our faith? You're a monster," Teresa said, her voice trembling. Unfazed, Joao continued, "No, I was called to show that true redemption comes through suffering." Horrified, Isabel asked the question that had lingered in her mind since the beginning. "And the children? What kind of enlightenment is this?" Joao looked at her with a mix of superiority and coldness. "Their bodies are the temples of new life, a new vision of God. Each child conceived here has a purpose. They are bearers of a truth the world is not ready to understand." His words left Teresa, Isabel, and Lucia terrified. He believed that suffering and the loss of purity were sacred acts. It was a grotesque distortion of faith, a cruel manipulation to control and violate the nuns' lives. With quiet fury, Isabel shouted, "You destroyed our lives, ruined us all. You will pay dearly for this." Before Joao could respond, Teresa signaled for Lucia and Isabel to lock the door. Minutes later, the police arrived, alerted by the nuns' cries. Father Joao was arrested immediately, but the repercussions of his actions would echo through the convent for years to come. As authorities delved into the case, darker truths emerged. Joao had a sordid past, using his position of power to manipulate vulnerable women seeking answers to their spiritual struggles. The Santa Clara convent would never be the same. Many of the nuns could not fully recover from the abuses they suffered. The scars, both physical and emotional, spread through the community. Lucia and Isabel, though spared the worst, would never forget what the priest had done. Yet they found strength in each other and in the courage they had summoned to expose the truth, no matter how painful and devastating. Mother Teresa, who had once trusted Joao blindly, now carried the weight of betrayal. But she also took on the mission of rebuilding the lives shattered by his cruelty. Though the convent was tarnished by sin and suffering, slowly the sisters began to reclaim their faith. The arrest of Father Joao and the scandal he caused marked the beginning of profound change. The true transformation lay not only in the justice served, but in the resilience of the women who, despite everything, found a way to rebuild their lives and their hope for the future. Months after Father Joao's capture, the pregnant nuns gave birth, bringing an unexpected scenario to the Santa Clara convent. 15 new lives emerged, born from indescribable suffering. Yet contrary to what many might have thought, these children were not seen as a curse, but as symbols of resilience and redemption. Lucia and Isabel, the two who had escaped the priest's grasp, became central figures in caring for the children. They were determined to raise the little ones in an environment of love and protection, far removed from the shadows of their past. The other survivors of the abuses also devoted themselves to nurturing the children, giving them the chance to grow in a home filled with affection and support. Mother Teresa transformed the convent into an orphanage, a haven for abandoned and needy children. The convent became a place where the nuns, once marked by shame, found new purpose. They dedicated themselves to preventing others from experiencing the pain they had endured. The place, once tainted by sorrow, now stood as a beacon of resilience and compassion. Every child who arrived was seen as an opportunity for healing and love. The nuns, with their own children, committed themselves to providing what they had never received, the chance for a dignified and hopeful future. Lucia smiled as she watched the children running through the garden, finally free from the shadows of the past. Here in the convent, we are all a family. Together we've transformed pain into something beautiful, Lucia said with faith. True redemption, these women realized, did not come from forgetting their experiences, but from using their wounds to heal the world around them. The convent became not only a refuge for abandoned children, but also a symbol of hope's ability to rise even from the darkest circumstances. In time, the Santa Clara Convent, once filled with tears and scars, found its new mission: to care, protect, and above all, give these children the love they had never known. The convent, now filled with laughter and play, became a space where the painful past no longer defined the future. If you enjoyed this story, the next video on your screen will move you as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming videos. Sending you a big hug, and we'll see you in the next heartwarming story.